call us to order
Oh,
here
wow.
at
Far away
1:30.
from each other and.
Wow, I want to see the back of your head.
I know.
We do a roll call, please.
Chaplin,
Here.
Desart, here, Eckhoff, Hart,
Here.
Solomon, here, Zed.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Do we have any public comment? Just under chair remarks, I'm hoping this is our very last rules meeting. I really want to thank everyone who's put in so much work over the last year. I think everyone has had parts of this they can look to and see I contributed that or I was brought up that question. So I think being able to take a step back and look at our rules even during a pandemic is something we should all really be proud of. Next are approval of minutes. So I'd seek a motion to approve our minutes of October 19th, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, motion carries. So next up is discussion on the county board rules. So one I want to start with is from our last conversation, we had sort of decided that our recommendation for the redistricting committee next time would be to have the majority's longest serving member as the chair and the minority's longest serving member as the vice chair. Our next step between that meeting and this meeting was Jason was going to do a little bit of research. So he's going to update us on that. And then I want to start going through with approving red lines once we get there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I did actually have a I went through, I actually had Angela and her team help me out with this. We talked to other collar counties about redistricting. None of them have it codified in their county rules. So that isn't something that they have. We're unique in that sense. Which I don't think is a bad thing. I actually think we have a good setup with that. And the language you'll see in the red line version indicates that it is the senior most member of the majority party is the chair with the senior most of the minority party as second. However, also you'll see we kept the committee at 7 people like we indicated. So the language in there indicates whoever the minority leaders, or I'm sorry, the minority party's senior most member, they will represent that district.
Okay.
So that's what it won't be. So say, we'll go with Jim Zay here. Say or, we'll go with District 6. How they had 2 individuals this time. It would be roughly similar, but the longest serving minority party, so let's say Sheila was that's not the case, but let's just say for this argument's sake, she would represent District 6. Jim would still be the chair, if you may, in this scenario.
So it's the longest serving, I'm sorry, it's been a long day.
No, you're fine, you're fine.
It's the longest serving member of the board of either party.
No,
The majority.
the
So
majority.
if we redid it this time, it would have been Liz would have chaired and member Zay would have vice chaired.
Correct. Yeah, that's a better way to put it. I was
So
trying to go.
then, I'm sorry, it's been a long day. So then nobody else in Jim Zay's district as the minority would be able to be on the.
Correct.
Okay,
He would
got it.
represent
Thank you.
District
I just
6.
wanted to make
Yes,
sure I
yes.
understood.
He would be the representative for
Gotcha.
District 6,
Okay.
which keeps us at 7.
Gotcha.
So in that case, you'd have somebody else from District 2 would have been their representative.
All right.
And
Yeah.
just for conversation purposes, if there were ever a point in time where there wasn't a minority party on the board, how would that work?
The great legal conundrum.
And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know the answer, but.
So the rule would likely need to be amended as the rule doesn't account for that scenario right now. It's a matter of, there's so many scenarios that aren't accounted for by these rules and we simply can't account for every scenario. And we're taking what we know right now and accounting for what we know. That's, I believe, the best iteration of the rules we can come to.
Yeah, well, in that case, maybe just the vice chair is selected by the committee or.
Well, maybe, are we doing a postmortem on the redistricting process? Like you're doing like a report
Yeah,
later
so
kind of
I
thing?
will
Maybe
be-
that could be like a note for 2030. Make sure the rules are good in January, otherwise.
Yeah,
you need to make some
I can
adjustments.
gladly add that in the report. Yeah, so there will be that final report, but Member Hart, I think you bring up a wonderful point with that, but I agree with council here indicating there is probably a lot of other scenarios in this one that the rules aren't applying to. So that's a great conundrum though.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, it's a brain teaser, if you
None of us will be
may.
here to do that. Member Chapman.
Thank you. And just to make a point, I believe that, excuse me, amendments on the floor do supersede our board rules. I'm correct, right? So if we did want to make let's say there was all one party because we had that before. then it would be a simple fix to amend those on the board, and that would supersede that. Because I know we did that with our budget calendar, because we changed that not according to our rules and some of the other things, so.
There is a super majority to suspend rules, and that's actually codified in this too, so that would probably be the solution.
Yeah, it wouldn't be hard in
Yeah, you
that
just say,
scenario.
okay, we're ignoring this rule, this is
Yeah.
what we're gonna be, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so what I want to do is kind of just go on like, let's everyone have the red line copy. Like on page 1, are there any changes you would reject? This is just chair update, so I think we're probably good. But take this as your or forever hold your peace meeting. We want to get as much as we can so we have our best product going to the county board for 2 weeks. So we can skip the rest of the appendix, whatever that's called, and then go to page 1 of the rules. So starting on after we get through the listing there. So remember in item 3, we're just giving ourselves those extra 2 hours. So we have the option of evening meetings. Otherwise, there's just grammatical updates. Are we all good on this page?
Yes.
All right. Page 2, again, this is just sort of mostly grammatical and making things sort of match. Okay, so are we all okay here?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. 3. Any objections here? All right, seeing none, are we all right? I don't want to rush people. Stop me if I'm going fast. All right, so seeing none on page 3, let's move to page 4. So a lot of just chair to chairs kind of deals. All okay here? All right, seeing none. Page 5, again, just updates of terms. Seeing no objections on page 5, okay. Page 6, again, updates of chairman to chair of board, that sort of thing. Good. 7, again, similar updates with chair and chair and chair versus chairman and updating to match the Illinois code. All right, seeing no objections on page 7.
Actually, under B,
Mhm.
it says county board chairs, short-term absence. It should also be apostrophe S for boards, because it would be ownership of the boards.
Oh,
Do you see that?
yeah, thank you. Very happy you're on this committee.
I know.
Fine eye for those. All right, any other thing caught on page 7? All right, seeing none. Page 8, even less. Nothing here, great. Moving on to page 9. This is, we talked about this a lot, how this is just mirroring the section that is for the specific committee. Otherwise, chairman turning to chairs on page 9. All okay there? All right, page 10. This is the one where we made those updates to the technology committee, both with the consent of everyone who's been moved off. So everyone's all read in on that plan. Clarified the intergovernmental committee to match what the bylaws are. So chairman versus chair. All okay on page 10 here? Page 11. And let's do page 11 and 12 together. We added the resignation section just so there's a clear mechanism for when people are changing committees or leaving there. Any questions or comments on pages 11 and 12? Great.
Do we want to, just for respect, under 5 resignation, it says members no longer wishing to serve on a committee shall submit their resignation to the county board chair and the committee chair? I'm just asking, I just think that would be respectful. Or not, just the county board chair? Don't you think it would be more respectful to also send a letter to the committee chair on which you're resigning, from which you're resigning?
I think the logic is just because the county board chair is who appoints the committees, but I'm happy to, does anyone have any other thoughts on that? I don't think there's a reason not to include them both.
Yeah, we can include, we can add that.
So the county board chair and the committee
Committee
chair
chair.
from which they're resigning.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I
In writing.
Mhm. All good and, okay. All right, so moving on from 11 and 12, thank you.
Just look back when we make it in writing, so can that be an email form or can that just?
Yeah, we accept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
in
just
writing,
has to
it
be like
just-
a record.
Yeah, it can't, it just can't orally be stated. That's the issue.
I quit.
Yeah.
The state's attorney's office will take a look at the language here.
We'll take a
I
look.
do foresee an issue should, for instance, a letter be submitted to the chair of a committee, but not to the chair of the board.
It would be both.
Yeah, it says here it's both.
So what effect do we give a letter that's only submitted to one? Will be the
None.
question.
Would be
So,
mine.
yeah, and that would be ours. I just want to double check that.
Okay.
So we'll get back to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, looking at pages 13 and 14. Any questions, corrections here? Seeing none, is it okay to move on? Okay. 15 and 16 together, just grammatical sort of things and updating our terminologies to match what we actually use. No objections here? Great. All right, 17 and 18, again, very similar, where we're updating chairman to chair, updating terms to match how the terms we actually use in our organization. And then we get to the name change for HHS to make it reflect what the committee does. Side cheers of excitement for HHS. Any other comments? All right.
Question, I'm sorry, I should just a question, I didn't mean to interrupt. But Airport Authority, we have in purple with a line through it, did we? whoop. So these are all of our fiscal policies. The Finance Committee shall advise and provide recommendations to the county board chair and the county board on financial and fiscal policies, and all other areas may be determined by the county board or as recommended to the chair of the Finance Committee relating to all of these departments. We took the Airport Authority off. I don't remember why.
And I believe that's because the airport authority's budget, it doesn't, I believe, and Nick, please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it was, we used to have a little bit more with that airport budget. Like I think we actually passed something for, it, but I think that's not the case anymore. And that's why we're pulling
We
it.
had more authority, the board did, over the airport.
Okay,
That's no longer the case. They're separate. I mean, your only authority would be the appointments
Okay.
that are made.
okay.
So they're completely independent.
Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure, just, I couldn't remember that discussion, so thank you very much. Okay, I'm fine with it then, that's good.
All right, so on to pages 19 and 20. So transportation, this is one where we are adding public transit in, so that's a lot of the redlining is merging those two committees together. We all good there?
Yes.
Moving on to JPS, which is updating the nomenclature and some of the words there. And then Public Works, we moved the stormwater, if you recall. On pages 19 and 20, are we okay? Okay. Moving on to 21, that 21 and 22, remember this is the stormwater adjustment. That's the majority of those red lines. And then you see that content being moved into G. The concerns for 21 and 22. None. 23 and 24, here's the stormwater stuff added into the stormwater committee. We went back and forth on environmental, but decided to keep it. And then public transit you see on 24 struck because we've added those duties into. Okay, on these two pages?
Okay, just any will, I know we talked about it, but I'm just thinking, because I've been talking with staff. And a lot of the purpose of this committee was to try to combine committees where we could.
Yes.
And we do have a lot, many more committees in some other counties. And, you know, again, talking with staff, you know, these agendas they take a lot of our staff time to put together, everything, you know, and combining some of these committees, and I know environmental is very important, but, you know, it impacts so many other departments like stormwater, public works, transportation, development. You know, if we maybe could, you know, not this year, obviously, but for 2022, have that committee rolled in maybe to these other committees as a subcommittee of each of those. That might even serve that committee better, because even when we do the scarce contract, it's a stormwater, public works. Who else do we do that contract with, the scarce? Is it just stormwater, public works, and
Environmental.
so,
But yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. That's why I raised my
but
hand.
I don't know if there's any will, I don't know, what's,
To consolidate more.
Well, I think it would be, in my opinion, be a good idea to have environmental like under like public works, because we can start working on what's going on, in terms of like, what I've been talking about all day with the electric chargers or something like that, So, I know they're talking on transportation, same thing, how we can do that, how we can do that. So, yeah, I think it would be great to have somebody on all these committees.
And also like technology into public works, because it affects the whole campus.
Right, so that's just, I don't know, what's the feeling?
Yeah, and I know we had a brief conversation about this today. So I completely agree with the intent to try to consolidate where it makes sense. The more I'm thinking about it, environmental touches everything, but it's also, I think, an issue that we need a single unified policy coming from the county board. My worry is that if it was segmented among a number of different committees, it has the potential to get convoluted if the makeup of those committees don't necessarily agree. So I think it's a very important issue. I think I'd like to probably see it as a standalone.
Okay,
Technology, I definitely would see as a standalone, I think, just considering all the work that goes through that committee, but I definitely see the intent.
yes, I'm just trying to give it one last college try.
I am running from, and I know everybody in this room has this situation, but I'm running from HHS, leaving HHS early to get to transportation every single week that we meet.
We're adjusting the schedule, though. Yes, because I know it's
It's an
infuriating.
issue.
And it's
I'm
awful
leaving
for
a
the
meeting
chairs.
early to get to another meeting late.
That's not very efficient. Yeah,
No.
so just briefly an update on that. We have that sitting with department heads to get their input on the time change because we want to expand it so you can have 45 minutes versus like a half an hour where we can't get through HHS. So we're just making sure we're not, really ruining anyone's jobs by doing that. And so they'll come back to us. And that was what we passed today. That's part of it is that we've talked about in this body, maybe doing one a quarter in the evening. So, but we want to get good input for that. For the environmental conversation, so we did have it where we split up, I think development and stormwater maybe. But before we were on hiatus, Chair Rutledge came and talked with us and I think sort of had similar comments to you, Member Hart, where while it does touch everything, the need and the priority and the growing crisis in the next 20 years, her view was that it required a standalone committee, maybe with a little bit more robust work than in prior years, but also I think her update at county board is to try to help address sort of those similar things where she wants.
Well, two, we went through some of them, but maybe having a standing item on those agendas, transportation, public works, development, environmental, I think it should be on there because that is where a lot of the environmental, where it's impacted so much. And, and I get that environmental committee, but I also, we have a department here like Joy Hines that we can also promote that a little bit more and have like a department of environmental department of DuPage County where, people can come and get permits for whatever, green, solar, whatever. But I think so. I think I'm fine with leaving the committee, but I really think it might be a good subcommittee or whatever, or they have on each of those agendas has another issue because I think it really does impact all of those committees. And we don't really discuss that a lot in those committees. So
That's a good point.
Any other comments? Either, I think by getting the consensus here, it's for environmental to stay, but to continue looking at maybe speak with the chairs about those other committees about adding that to their agendas. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Any other changes to 23 and 24? Otherwise, keep them the way they are in here in the red line?
yes.
Great. All right, 25 and 26. I would echo Member Hart's comment about technology. I think especially any of you who were up bright and early for the presentation on the 26th, it's not just the growing cybersecurity challenge, it's the complexity of our organization and especially having department heads and leaders who are their own elected officers. I think having a committee that is dedicated to giving that overlook is something we desperately need. We've gone back and forth on strategic planning, and I think we came to the consensus that it would be very much out of line with the rest of the counties to not have it, and maybe we can just sort of make that committee more robust. Economic development, we were keeping the same, and then redistricting is where we have the changes we previously discussed. So anything on pages 25?
Yes, so on 25 and 26, so strategic plan, I don't know who I talked with about this, but maybe, and this, keep in mind, none of these changes are going to go in effect with the committees until 2022. So it's be a whole brand new, so it's not none of these recommendations are personal or against anybody or whatever. But strategic plan could fall under a subcommittee of finance, where you could have a subcommittee of finance do strategic planning. Or I know somebody, I don't know who it was here, made a recommendation that each committee have a strategic plan, you know, and then work on that and then put it all together as one strategic plan, maybe under a subcommittee of finance. But again, I'm just thinking of the paperwork and all this other stuff, and then with economic development, you know, we have Choose DuPage, and they are our economic engine, and they're really our economic development group. And I know we have the workforce, the Lisa Schvat comes in with her WorkNet information, but really, if we had Choose DuPage come and report to the county board every quarter, and then we put this WIA, the workforce, into human services, where it almost really belongs, because a lot of this is low income and community service. You know, we could technically get rid of economic development as well next 2022, and you know, have Choose DuPage, because like I said, they really are the ones that do this. And then have the WIA just go right into human services. So that's enough. Like I said, I'm just trying to help the staff, because I know that all this stuff is a lot of work for them. Anywhere we can see consolidate, I don't know, do we get any consensus on? What do you
Yeah,
guys
and then
think?
any contracts that come up.
First, actually, then I'll recognize you.
Yeah.
For economic development, it's my understanding that 49% of their budget comes from the county board, and the other 51 is from private investors. So
Or Choose DuPage.
correct. Choose
Yes,
DuPage. So
yes.
giving up, we're the elected officials to set the economic policy. Mr. Bedlaw executes it. So I wouldn't be in favor of that, but I could hear others. Member Dishart?
I would be in favor of that. And any other items that need to come up for a vote, like, for example, we just approved the Choose DuPage contract again,
Yeah.
would go through finance.
Member Hart?
Thank you. I take the opposite approach in economic development. I actually think that's a really important committee to keep. I frankly would like to find ways to make it a little bit more robust. That's the main reason why people choose to live here is our schools and our economic environment. So I'd like to keep that personally, and I think there's even more we can be doing. But on your strategic plan comment, Liz, I still see there being value in having a single body kind of coordinate across and set strategic priorities for the county. Whether or not that would just sit in finance or a separate committee, I'd totally be open to discussion on that. I do think there needs to be some separate body, you know, whether it's a sub or a permanent committee that kind of oversees and integrates the plan. That's just my own take.
Member Garcia?
Quick question on the strategic planning. How often do they meet?
So, yeah, I mean, it's at the will or call of the chair currently, but quarterly is when they typically try to meet. I believe outside of this quarter, because we're not there yet, we've met quarterly this year, I believe. I would have to look at the schedule again. Maybe I'm just thinking the first, we met 3 or 4 times in my first few months here, I believe. I feel like that was the case. So I would have to look at the schedule again. But we did meet, I know for a fact, the last one was, I believe, June. That was for when we did the FY21 strategic initiatives, as well as the recap of FY 2020.
And which ones meet quarterly? Strategic planning and intergovernmental right now?
Yes, those are the two that, yes.
Member Dishart?
I was just gonna say the strategic planning meetings that I've seen have not been about strategic planning in the last year or so. They've been about diversity issues. So they haven't been about strategic planning at all.
That was gonna be my second question. I'm like, because I haven't seen anything really dealing with what this is stating.
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused on what it has been talked about. I thought maybe I missed some meetings, but maybe I didn't.
Yeah, I don't sit on that committee, so I wouldn't know.
And it looks,
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I'm just looking at the meeting schedule. So I don't know why they have meetings for March and May that were canceled on
They're
the,
pre-scheduled.
according to that.
Yeah,
Okay. And
I
then-
can speak to that. That is, yeah, when we pre-schedule things, assuming, and then we change things
Okay.
around, that's how it gets put up on the website. So that was probably more of a staff thing than anyone in particular.
Right, yeah, and they really weren't not at all about, they were really not at all about strategic plans. So we really haven't had a really good strategic plan meeting this year, I would say. So
Again,
again,
I don't
something
think
to-
so. I've been on the
assigned to
board.
that committee, so it's
Right.
still part of their work. It's just how they're setting their agenda. So, I don't want to come and I guess on that, but I would, but that's the work that they've been given by the chairman, so they're doing that now.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
My opinion is to keep it, we've gone through this kind of a lot over the last year.
No,
and
I'm
I think to keep as is, but I do appreciate the conversation. I think that's why we're doing this. It's our
Yep,
last,
absolutely.
our last dive here.
Yep.
All right, sort of everyone's last, or hold your peace on redistricting. Would you like this? We plan to try it next time? Okay. And I do think it's nice that we're the only county that gives it enough attention to have a specific thoughtful way we assign that committee. I think that's something.
I will say from my research and talking to others, it does appear that they use the approach of the chief elected official or the county chairman or chief executive, who usually presents the plan and they tweak it from there. So we're a little unique in that sense that it's been allowed to where it was actually the board itself made that decision as opposed to just getting the proposed map from the chairman themselves. So that is something that I would, again, it's another unique thing of DuPage where, we had a lot of public meetings, we had a lot of that, there was a lot of that. So I didn't see that with others. I saw map was presented by the chief elected official and that's what we were looking at. So I agree with you. I agree with your sentiment. So I think it's a nice benefit.
All right, any other comments or questions on these pages? All right. On page 27, the only really big change here is fixing animal services to have their proper name now. Moving on to page 28, again, the biggest change is the intergovernmental. We're just making it match the DuPage mayor and manager bylaws. Follow really what we do in that committee anyway. So any comments on these 27 and 28? All right. Moving on to 29, the biggest section you see here again is just the duplication of the login language to make sure both places you're looking it's fair and consistent. And then we have sort of just ad hoc. So anything on 29 and 30. Yep.
So I don't know if this is the appropriate place to raise it. It's more just a comment versus a specific recommendation, but I think a number of us mentioned this in the previous meeting. I was just a little uncomfortable with the level of detail some committees were getting into when it came to their scope, specifically on salaries. I know it's committee's responsibility to review budgets. That makes sense to me, but I firmly believe we're not a managing body as a county board, we're a governance body. I don't know how we change that. And again, no disrespect to anyone that was involved, but I think we need to be a little bit level up when it comes to our scope of responsibilities as committee members. And that's all I'd say. Not sure if I have a proposal, but that's something that I wanted to mention today.
I think it's good for all of us who chair committees to remember, and we had this in technology when we were talking about cybersecurity, the question of do we need to go into executive session for that? So we had to go into, okay, what exactly are we saying? Nope, that's pretty much information, but I would maybe agree if we're talking about like ranges of, raises for individual folks, and if they ended up not getting it, I can see just it's more of it's less of, honestly, for a thought for us is more like a helpful note for our state's attorneys to, if we start getting into that range, maybe remind us that executive session's an option for committees too, not just bodies of the whole. Hi, members A. We're on page 29 of the red line, if you'd like to join. And remember to
Sure.
Yeah, I just wanted
We'll have
to
to actually
respond
get a
real
motion
quick.
to
Oh,
approve.
Say, no, I know. it's not
Yeah,
for-
so
Oh,
you have to
never
do a
just
quick
sorry.
call for,
Let's.
you'll have to move based under 7A of the Open Meetings Act
To permit him to attend.
to permit him to attend remotely due to work
Yeah,
purposes.
due to employment issues. So we
That
got to
can be
move, motion, second, all in favor?
I
Any opposed? Great, great. Welcome, members A. Thank
you're
you.
not driving a forklift.
Thank you.
Somebody was doing before we
Anyway, I
started.
just wanted to say in response to that the staff did ask us to look at salaries because they were having, and we've heard across campus, they were having such a hard time hiring new hires that they want, and they're down like 7 people right now. And they wanted to advertise for a position that they wanted to offer more money the people currently in that position are getting. So we had to bring the people currently in that position up to that rate so that they could post about hiring, so I just wanted to say that there was a method to our madness.
No, it
It's like,
makes
we want
sense.
to post this job for, whatever, $50,000, but the person currently doing the job is only making 35, so we've got to do something to make this person happy before we can post it. I just wanted to give you the method for our
No, and
man.
I appreciate it, and we're all about continuous improvement, right?
Right,
So it's just
right,
how we're gonna improve on it moving forward. So appreciate the comments. Thank you.
So, no, I was just gonna say, so, and this is kind of a unique, I think, situation what happened maybe with animal control and our survey going on at the same time, but I agree, but, you know, and maybe if a committee chair mentions it, maybe then staff says, oh, hold on a minute, you know, that's gotta really be initiated by us and maybe do something like that, but I think this was a unique circumstance because we had the salary study going on, and then we had that happen in animal control. So I think it was kind of just an overlapping kind of weird coincidence, weird kind of thing that just took place. But I think just next time we need to be a little more cognizant of it and make
I
sure.
don't remember talking about salaries the whole time I've been on this board.
Right. So yeah,
No.
so right. So I think it was just kind of a weird fluky thing.
All right, any other comments on 29 or 30? All right, seeing none, we're getting close here. 31, this is where we had our discussion on public comment. So it's 30 minutes total, each person 3 minutes, start with in-person, read electronic if we get it. And we've got the deadline for the electronic, so staff can leave at a decent hour.
Can I just ask?
We'll go Chaplain and then Garcia.
Okay, thanks. So just for clarification, so I filled out public comment for the Forest Preserve meeting. And on the public comment form, that said, you know, your name, your email, your address, I filled it all out. Now, we're not technically, now we technically can't ask, or can we put it on the form and then not fill it out and still accept it? Or can we not put that out there at all? So that's my question.
We can put it on the form as a field that they can fill in. We cannot require it in order for
Okay.
the public comment to be submitted to the record.
So since I've never submitted public comment to us, but do we have that on the?
Yeah,
Current-
currently, even if you're online too, she can get the physical, but what it is you ask for the name, address, I believe email or phone number. So
Okay.
we do ask for it, but again, as council has indicated, we can't require it,
Okay.
but we do ask for it. Now,
Okay.
mind you, I might be the only one, but when I have all of it, I typically just fill it out, even if I don't look if it's required or not. So I think that most people would just fill it out as well.
Right, so-
And I think that's what happens for a majority of the public comment. I'd have to ask Ms. Mundall if that happens to be the case.
Oh, great. So that's exactly like the Forest Preserves then.
Yep.
Exactly. That was exactly like,
So
okay,
the
good. So at least,
organization
star.
you're representing. yeah.
right, yes. So, okay, so good. So then some people might thought, because like I said, my concern is that, Joe Smith could get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, really mad about something, send in a public comment, use somebody else's name or a fake Gmail. And we don't even know, if these people are, I know somebody said, well, you don't know that with public comment, but you could probably identify them pretty easy. Somebody say, who was this person really? Or that person said, that wasn't Mary Smith that spoke. So, because that's only my concern, that we're gonna get, that we get people that aren't really.
So
or some person-
upon advice of counsel and just chatting with him here, they do have a right to do it under a pseudonym if they would like
Really?
to. So
Okay,
regardless of even us requiring a name, they
okay,
could put ABC, ZD, whatever it is, and we would still have to justify or still allow it as,
Okay.
that's,
all right, thank you.
that's just part of it.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
So Garcia, and then remember to start.
Yeah, I have a quick question. It seems like it's very redundant that we are having everything sent to the board members electronically, and then it's going to be printed off and then also read at the board meeting. I understand there's transparency issues and things like that, but I mean, if we're all getting it and we're supposed to be doing our work before the meetings, and to me, it seems like a waste of paper, and I'm going back into my sustainability, form, to have the staff, basically have to print off all of these comments, and then if they only read like 2, that's a waste of paper. So I'm just trying to figure out if there's since we're getting them electronically, do we also need to get them and have them read? I don't understand why.
My view is that public comment isn't just for us, it's for the public too. It's so people can get their voice into the conversation. But I'm happy to hear from other folks. Then let's finish this topic, so I'll call on you, and then I'll move to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I would agree, but to your point, I mean, if the staff is using a computer versus printing, I'm fine with that. But I do think if there's time left over in public comment, I agree with having the electronic ones.
But Does it say like it has to be printed? Did I?
No.
Okay, I was like, I just want to make sure that I'm like
No,
literally a PDF.
what I can say from a procedural standpoint of what we do now, we print each one and put it in order in which we received it to comply with the Open Meetings Act and to ensure that we're reading it in the appropriate fashion. So that's why it's done that
Easier for
way. Yeah.
staff reading.
Yeah, as opposed to us trying to find through emails or anything like that, and we're sitting up on the podium, it's a lot more efficient from that standpoint.
And I will say, we are going above and beyond. We don't have to read the public comments. I think it is transparent. I think it makes our body more accessible. I think it's good if you work and you can't come here at 10 a.m. I think there's just a lot of reasons why I'm in support of that.
And you can recycle paper. You can recycle paper.
That's just true.
I was just gonna follow up on Liz. I totally understand your point, but I think legally, anybody can submit public comment from anywhere in the world, right?
Correct.
And we still have to read it. I know that when I gave testimony to the Naperville City Council about anti-puppy mills, we had a ton of people from Amish country come up and speak. And they weren't from.
Oh, no, I don't know. I don't care where they're from. I just don't want
Fake people?
the same person sending in 10 comments about,
Oh.
that's what, that's the issue with the electronic.
Better do it.
All right, any other comments on pages 31 and 32? 33, we've got our planes, trains, and automobiles. I think it's a good addition. For parliamentarian, we're essentially keeping it, and what we need to elect someone out of our body. We just need to do what our rules say. Any other comments, questions, discussion on these two pages?
So we cannot hire a parliamentarian, a professional parliamentarian?
And then members say,
Yeah, I mean, legally, I mean, we would have the opportunity or the right, or the board has the right, yes, to hire if they would like to. Obviously, there would have to be some consultation with the state's attorney's office as there is certain legal matters that would require that. But I think that there was not enough consensus, if you may, to move that forward in a fashion like that.
Okay,
But so I think we just left it as is because we didn't have clear direction.
all right, thank you.
any other comments on 33? Oh, sorry, members A.
If we elect a parliamentarian amongst ourselves, do they get a special hat or something they get to wear, like a crown or something?
Only if you pick it
Yeah,
out.
only you.
Okay, thanks.
I do want to make one other comment about the parliamentarian though. So even if you elect it within your own, from a parliamentarian procedure standpoint, if you disagree with a decision the parliamentarian makes, you can appeal the decision of the parliamentarian to the board as a whole. So though it's procedural issue, there is a check and balance if anyone was concerned about that, that the board itself can police itself. And that's kind of the whole point of it. Though Robert's rules is a great guidelines, you reserve the right to police yourself. And I believe the state's attorney's office would agree with that.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Any other questions, comments on 33 and 34? All right. 35, 36. Any questions on these two pages? All right, seeing none. Did we lose members A, Wendy, or did we just, did we lose members A? Or do you just change the camera thing? Oh, okay, that's fine. Okay, 37, 38. Comments, questions on these? Seeing none, okay. 39 and 40. A lot of cleaning up to not be duplicative. Seeing none, all right. 41 and 42. And then just as a reminder, your spacing's a little bizarre here. That's your that's your last very thing to do. So we're not
Clean
gonna-
copy, we'll have that, yeah.
all right, seeing no items here. 43 and 44. We're gonna add,
Might be quite, oh, I'm sorry.
oh, are you talking about the effective dates?
No, my
Okay.
big, I'm glad that I was on this committee to talk about, the state's attorney thing, like what is.
Oh, the clarification, yeah.
Yeah, the clarification of what is, an official, what is the language here? A legal opinion versus asking for informal advice, yeah.
I agree. I think that was good to sort out as well. And then effective dates is Jason.
If I can speak to that. So, Member Chaplin, I think you alluded to this with a few of your comments today, and I appreciate that. The key thing I need to know so I can get a resolution written for us on the next one is, do you want this effective immediately? Do you want portions of it effective immediately? Do you want it to wait till November, whatever our last day is for their authority next year? And if that's the case, I think what we need to put on here is these rules become effective immediately, except for, and then I'll put whatever it is. So if I can have direction from this committee on, is there certain things we want to wait? I know one thing we all indicated was any changes to any of the committees, we would wait till that November so we can get the language in for any of the changes of the committees. But is there anything else that you would, or if the list is smaller, and there's only 2 things you'd like to have implemented, now we'll do it that way. But it's easier to say what's delayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think we need to enact the driving immediately, so, you know, but I don't really, we didn't really make many changes. I have no issue with doing this whole thing. I did want to check on one thing. And it might be, and I didn't get a chance to check our ethics ordinance before I came to this meeting. It was something that's been in my mind. Does our ethic ordinance preclude somebody from, so if you leave the county board and you leave the county office, that they cannot get a job here or lobby for a year? Do we have that anywhere? I don't know if it's appropriate for our rules or that's appropriate for our ethics.
Yeah.
I was gonna look up our ethics
I would have to
ordinance
look at
right
the ethics,
now.
or I don't remember off the top of my head right now. I can speak with ethics advisor Hanlon as well. He's our expert counsel on that one, but I can look at that. However, I can say this, that the ethics ordinance would be effective to you guys. So even if it's not codified in these rules, that ordinance would apply.
So that would be in that ordinance, not in the board.
Correct. I mean, you can put it in both, but the ordinance, I believe, would supersede.
It would.
Yeah, the ordinance
Okay.
would supersede.
So I have
whatever's in
time to
the
check the
rules.
ordinance. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay. Thank you.
Just for my opinion, my opinion would be to make it effective immediately, except for the committee changes, but make everything
Yeah,
else effective immediately.
with public transit, yeah. Or could we move public transit into transportation right now?
I feel like it might
Who's the public?
get
transit?
political and
Mary.
people will get
I don't think
grumpy.
it would, Mary, I don't think
Oh,
Mary.
I don't think she can.
Maybe let's just leave it for now. I think the only change I would maybe consider coming out of the section would be the titles for the committees where we cleaned it up, like HHS and JPS if we wanted to do that. Otherwise, I feel like that may be more of a headache than it's worth.
I would have to double check with the council. The only thing I'm worried about is we've already put the notice out for them under that name.
Yep.
So I just have a concern about public notice on that, but I would have to defer, or we'd have to look into that.
It's a-
Probably not worth this.
Yeah, just trying
Yeah.
it now.
So it would have to be a resolution, wouldn't it?
Change the name of the committee at the time. Yeah, so that's
We
probably
couldn't
not
do it
worth
by
it.
rule.
Yeah, so let's, never mind.
Yeah, so that would be that's my main concern.
So I think we're in agreement that we're changing everything except the things that change who chairs, who's on committees and that sort. So that section, we're waiting
Sure.
until December, whatever,
Yes,
2022, and
so-
everything else when we vote.
I will call out, like, the makeup of the technology committee is something that's changed, so I'll call that out. I'll do some of those makeups as well as the committees themselves. I will make that
That's
not
in the
effective.
future part.
Those will be the effective November 30th or whatever.
Oh, yeah, so
The
we
new
could just,
board takes its seat on December 5th. You may want
That's
to
the
make
day
it
we want.
effective the day the new board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it has to be the day before, because this board's authority, isn't that what we said last time?
yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be the day before they take off.
Well,
can't-
that's a
Um,
Monday, so it would have to be effective the Friday before that, correct?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just. you
Yeah,
can't-
because we wouldn't meet between them.
Correct. Yes.
The section five, section five. Yeah, there's no
That's fine.
So for our action item, you're seeking a motion and a second to approve the red line as is, with our understanding that section 5 would go into effect the last day of our terms,
So moved.
and everything else will go
And
into
all the
effect when
other
board votes.
little items discussed today will be updated.
In effect when it's voted on. So we got a motion.
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Let's do a roll call, please.
Desart. Aye. Eckhoff.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Solomon.
Aye.
Zay.
Aye.
Capra.
Awesome, thank you. So just as a reminder, this will go to our county board for 2 reads. We want to do the full process because it's a big change. It's not a big change, it's just we want all the eyeballs on it. And so this is, my understanding, this is our last one, right?
Unless you
something
guys,
wild
I was gonna
comes
say,
back.
unless you guys have something else,
Yeah, I will, based on this recommendation, I will craft it into a resolution with the state attorney's office. You'll have it as a county board resolution. It'll go to finance first. Actually, I think it's finance.
Yeah,
first. I don't-
finance is the overseeing
Yeah,
of the rules.
yeah, finance, then board on the 23rd, and then the 14th in December. So those will be the two reads. That would be the timetable for
So
everybody.
then that'll be your goal, Chairwoman Ash.
That's the plan.
It's gonna be adopted in 2021.
That's not too bad for the year we did. Any old business? Yeah,
Only old business is just to commend you, Madam Chair, for running these meetings really well. I know this is a difficult process and arduous, but I think you did a really good job. So, nice work.
very kind. Any new business? All right, objection, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Are you